Hello and welcome to a new video on IGCSE Mathematics. In this video, we shall be discussing basics. We shall begin with approximation. Write 0.07164, correct to two significant figures. So when we're dealing with significant figures, we neglect any zeros on the left. So we're not going to count this zero or this zero. We're going to start counting here. We have two figures, so we have 7 and 1. We have to check whether the 6 affects the 1 or not. And of course, since 6 is greater than 5, it does affect the 1. So we get 0.072. And this is the correct answer. Write 1.8972 correct to two decimal places. So, of course, you have to distinguish between significant figures and decimal places. With decimal places, we just count starting the decimal point. So we have the 8 and the 9. So the 7 affects the 9 because it's greater than 5. We get 0 instead of the 9, and we carry a 1 onto the 8, and this becomes 9. So we have 1.90. 1.90 is correct. Next, we move on to directed numbers. At noon, the temperature was 4. At midnight, the temperature was negative 5.5. Work out the difference between noon and midnight. Of course, the difference is going to be 4 minus negative 5.05. And this would give us 4 plus 5.5. And this gives us 9.5. This is the correct answer as well. The lowest temperature recorded at Scott Base in Antarctica is negative 57. The highest temperature is 63.8, more than this. So more than means we add. So we have negative 57 plus 68. And the answer is positive 11. Excuse me, I seem to have misread the question. It is not 68, it is 63.8. I made a mistake reading the problem. I apologize for that. So 63.8 plus negative 57, and this gives us 6.8 degrees. And this would be the final answer. Write down the temperature that is 7 below negative 3. So below means we subtract. So we have negative 3, and then we subtract 7 from it. And this gives us negative 10 degrees. So negative 10 is the correct answer here. At noon, the temperature was 21. At midnight, the temperature had fallen by 26. So fallen means it decreased by 26. So we need to subtract. So 21 minus 26. And this gives us negative 5 degrees Celsius. Negative 5 is the correct answer here. Finally, we move on to calculator work. The thickness of one sheet of paper is 8 times 10 power negative 3. Work out the thickness of 250 sheets of paper. So to work out this thickness, we multiply these two numbers together. You're allowed to use your calculator. So the idea here is just to make sure that you write things correctly on the calculator. And here is a screenshot of a calculator. There is an image of how this should be written onto the calculator. 250 times 8 times 10 power negative 3. And the answer is 2. This is correct. Use your calculator to work out this expression. So again, the idea here is to be able to write this correctly onto the calculator. It looks something like this. Make sure that all the numbers are written within the square root. So your calculator cannot look like this, for example. This is a common mistake, where the square root is only including the 10 without including the rest of the expression. So make sure that the entire expression is written correctly, properly, under the calculator. And where you need to have brackets, you can have brackets. The multiplication sign is not very important. You can just write 0.6 and then open brackets. The calculator understands that as a multiplication automatically. And the answer is 7.37. This is the correct answer. Here we have a fraction and we want to use the calculator. If it's a 1 mark problem, then you're definitely using the calculator. So a good strategy is to write it as a fraction on the calculator. Some people might want to write it like this: 5.39 minus 0.98 divided by 0.743 minus 0.0743. If you write it like this, the calculator will not interpret it correctly. If you want to write it like this and get the correct answer, you would need to include brackets. So you need to have brackets like this, and then another set of brackets like this, so that your calculator understands the correct sequence or order of operations. However, it's much easier and safer to just write it out as a fraction on the calculator to guarantee that no mistakes are made in that sense. And the answer here is 6.59, and this is the correct answer. In general, we write our answers correct to 3 significant figures. Again, this is another expression that we want to evaluate on the calculator. This is what it looks like. It's pretty straightforward. You can just copy it as is. You don't need any extra brackets or anything here, because the calculator automatically figures out that this 1.3 to the power of 0.8 needs to be calculated before the subtraction is carried out, because the calculator takes into account PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. So parentheses or brackets, exponents are powers. So like x power y, for example. So here this is an exponent. So it takes precedence over subtraction. So we calculate the power before we do the subtraction, and the calculator understands that. So it would get you the correct answer anyway. 4 is correct, or 4.01 is correct here. So you make sure you write the 3 significant figures. Here is another expression that you just use your calculator to work out. Again, just try to copy it exactly as is and make sure that everything is within the square root. And it's good to put brackets before you put sign, because the sign expression itself has brackets. So sin x has brackets. So on the calculator, it's a good idea to wrap that in another pair of brackets so that the power 2 affects the whole expression rather than affecting the 33. Because if you don't do that, the calculator might calculate sine 33 power 2. So it would calculate 33 power 2 first and then calculate sine of the answer. And that would be completely wrong. So you make sure that you put the brackets and then you put the power 2 outside of the bracket. This is the main idea here. And 0.839 is the correct answer. Here we have 2 other expressions. We can use the calculator for those as well. You don't need brackets for the first one because the division takes precedence over subtraction, and the calculator will interpret this correctly. For the second one, just make sure that the cubic root includes both 2 power 3 and 2. This is another expression. It's always a good idea to write a fraction as a fraction on the calculator, like I did here. So I just copied it down exactly as it is, and then I multiplied by the other number, and I got the correct final expression. So bear in mind that the answer here needs to be to 2 significant figures. So as the particular accuracy is imposed, you cannot write 4.57, for example, because this would be 3 significant figures. The 7 here affects the 5, so the answer is 4.6. The final answer would be 4.6. This is another expression. So you can write it exactly as is on the calculator, and it will give you the correct result. And finally, this expression, which again, you can just write as is on the calculator, and you would get the correct result. So this brings us to the end of our video. I hope this has been beneficial. Thank you for watching.